Hello everyone, my name is Rachel. Welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to do a video that's just a little bit different from what I normally do, and I wanted to talk about audiobook recommendations, as you can see from the title. So since I got back into reading about a year ago now, it was last August that I really got back into reading just for fun. I started listening to audiobooks that other booktubers would recommend to their viewers while I was driving to work or putting on makeup, basically any activity where I didn't have to concentrate too much on what I was doing and I could still take in the story of a novel. And so I thought it would be cool to do a recommendations video like this every so often because I do listen to quite a few audiobooks each month. Some of the books on this list are quote-unquote basic because they are very well-known books and very much well-loved audiobooks, but there are also a few audiobooks on this list that I thought weren't as well-known, so I hope that you guys get something out of this video. So without further ado, let's just get into it. The first book I'm going to talk about is You by Caroline Kepnes. This is probably an audiobook that you guys have heard quite a bit about. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the plot of this book. This is essentially a suspense/thriller novel, and it centers around Joe, who is this kind of crazy, creepy stalker guy. He meets this woman named Beck in the bookstore that he works at in New York City, and he becomes obsessed with her and starts stalking her and will essentially do whatever it takes to make sure that he ends up with her. So while I'm sure the physical book is really great, it's the audiobook that I think is just so phenomenally done. Santino Fontana is the narrator. If you don't know who that is, he is the voice of Prince Hans in Frozen. He was also in Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, and he's also a very well-known Broadway actor. And this book is also told in second person, so you feel like that Joe is speaking directly to you as if you were Beck. And that, with the combination of Santino's narration, just made this reading experience really enjoyable, but also like really creepy and really weird. He literally just has like the perfect voice for this character. I just think that he embodied Joe so well and he made the character really believable. And what's also really messed up about this book is that you end up starting to root for Joe, and I think Santino's narration has something to do with that. So yeah, if you're in the mood for a really good thriller/stalker story, I definitely recommend this. I think I'm just going to talk about all of the thriller novels while I'm on the topic. So the next one is Jane Doe by Victoria Helen Stone. This is a book that I listened to sometime last year as well and really enjoyed it. I ended up giving it 5 stars. This is a really cool thriller/revenge story that I don't hear a lot of people talking about. So this book centers around Jane, and she works at a Midwest insurance company, and her boss is named Steven, and she essentially makes herself over to look and act like the perfect woman that Steven would be attracted to because she's trying to get revenge against him. And so that's essentially what this whole book centers around. I really enjoyed this book mainly because I was just so entertained the entire time. Also, the narrator for this audiobook, her name is Nicole Zanzarella. I think I will put her name over here. She also just had like the perfect voice for Jane. You just really felt like you were in her mind, and I just loved how that made me feel like I was just so immersed into the story. This book definitely gets kind of creepy and stalkery as well, so if you were in the mood for that, I definitely recommend Jane Doe. And the last mystery thriller I want to talk about is The One by John Mars. So this story centers around this company called Match Your DNA, which is a company kind of like Match.com and eHarmony, but they use your DNA to specifically match you to the actual perfect person that you should be paired up with. So this book follows about 5 different POVs of 5 different people who take this Match Your DNA test and they get matched up with their soulmate. And this turns into more of a thriller because some of the people that we're following are either already with somebody, one of the characters is a serial killer, and there are plenty of plot twists to go around in this book. What's also really great is that they had 5 different voice actors for each POV, and so that definitely helped, especially in the beginning when I was kind of getting people confused as to like who they were and who they're with. It was good to have those 5 different voices kind of guiding me along. And yeah, this book definitely kept me on the edge of my seat the entire time, and I just think that the audiobook also just kept me really immersed. So I definitely also recommend this if you are looking for a good mystery thriller audiobook. Okay, so most of the books on this list tend to be thrillers. I guess that's the audiobooks that I really like to listen to. So the next one I'm going to talk about is Into the Drowning Deep by Mira Grant. For those of you that don't know, Mira Grant is actually a pen name that Sean McGuire uses, so they are the same person. And this is a really really interesting premise. So 7 years before this book begins, the Itargatis is a ship that took a voyage to the Mariana Trench, and basically this production company was filming a mockumentary about sirens, but that whole ship and all of its crew and everyone on board was lost at sea, and nobody knows really what happened. But I think that they found some footage from this mockumentary to lead them to believe that they did run into these sirens and that these sirens are real, but a lot of people called it a hoax, and a lot of people just don't know what to believe. And so the same production company essentially put together a new team of people to go back out to the Mariana Trench to see if there is any truth to any of this. And this audiobook is voiced by Christine Lakin. I think that's how her name is pronounced. Again, I'll put it right here. But she did such a good job with this audiobook, and I also thought that just the production overall was just really well done. Even though it was one narrator, you really felt like you were immersed into all of these people's lives while they were on this ship. And something about this audiobook just like really put you in this eerie, creepy atmosphere. I still vividly remember certain parts of this audiobook just because it was so unique and so memorable. And Christine also did a really good job giving a very specific voice and accent to each of these different characters, because these are all people that are coming from very different parts of the world. Some people had like Russian accents, some people had Australian accents, and some people were just American. But I thought that she did a really great job with the dialects. And also my impression of this audiobook when I was putting together this list of books that I was going to recommend to you guys was that I could have sworn this had multiple narrators because that's how distinct the voices were, but no, it was just one person. So yeah, I just can't recommend this one enough if you're looking for a really creepy, scary story. The next book on this list is Sadie by Courtney Summers. This is probably a YA book that you guys have heard a lot about. It is very popular and for very good reason. The audiobook specifically has a full cast of voice actors voicing all of the characters in this book, which just made this reading experience so phenomenal. So this book basically centers on two POVs. One of them is Sadie, the title character, who essentially is out looking for her sister's killer. Meanwhile, we are also following Wes McCrae, who is a radio personality, and he does this podcast called The Girls, and he is essentially following Sadie's journey because Sadie is now missing. So while I'm sure the physical book on its own is really great, it's really the audiobook that sells this story. Like I said, having the full cast of characters just really immersed me into the story. I feel like I'm gonna say this about every book on this list, but when you have really great voice actors, it further immerses you into the story and into the minds of these characters, and it just makes for a really cool and unique reading experience. So this is a very dark YA story. I just wanted to kind of warn you guys about that. There are quite a few trigger warnings. Some of them I can't remember, but I do remember that there is child abuse and sexual assault involved, so if you think that's something that you can't handle, I would stay away from this book. I've also read 2 of Courtney Summers' novels at this point, and I can tell you that she does a phenomenal job of writing YA stories about these really dark topics. But yeah, I don't really know what else to say except that the production of this audiobook was just top notch, and I honestly feel like the audiobook is like the only way that you should take in this story just because it was that phenomenal. Next book on this list is another creepy one, and that is Baby Teeth by Zoe Stage. I think that's how her name is pronounced, either Zoe or Zoya. So this story centers around Suzette, who is the mother of the 7-year-old girl named Hannah, and Hannah loves her dad, absolutely adores her dad, wants to just live with her dad, but she hates her mother, and she essentially sees her mother as her mortal enemy. And so this book is definitely really, really creepy. We're basically following the 2 POVs of Suzette and Hannah, and Hannah's inner monologue is just so creepy. The things that she thinks, the things that she does to her mother, it's just, man, it's just creepy. And the audiobook in particular, I think the narrator's name was Gabra Zachman. She really did a great job giving each of these characters such a distinctive voice, and she really gave Hannah's inner monologue the creepiness that it needed. This book definitely read kind of like a Lifetime original movie, so if you're into those type of stories, you would definitely enjoy this book. And I really just enjoyed the creepiness of it, and I definitely recommend it, obviously, because this is a recommendations video. But yeah, this is yet another really great option if you were looking for a really creepy thriller. Next book I'm going to talk about is an audiobook that I feel like everyone is obsessed with, and for a very good reason, and that is Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I feel like I've talked about this book a lot on my channel, so I'm not going to talk too much about it in this video, but this book essentially follows this fictional band that is very reminiscent of Fleetwood Mac in the 70s, and there is Daisy Jones, who is a singer-songwriter, and this band called The Six, and they essentially collaborate and become one band. This book is told in interview format, and so an audiobook is really the perfect way to go because they employed a full cast of voice actors, and so it's really cool to hear their stories directly from their mouths, so to speak. And yeah, so many people on BookTube are obsessed with this book, and for very good reason. It's a really, really cool story. It just seems so realistic, and honestly, at the end of this book, I was actually really sad that I couldn't just go listen to their music because they are not real. So yeah, I'm not going to talk much more about this book, but I wholeheartedly recommend it. It's probably going to end up in one of my top 10 favorite books of the year. So these last few books I'm going to talk about are from two narrators that have honestly become my favorite audiobook narrators of all time. And the first one I'm going to talk about is Elizabeth Acevedo, who is an author and a narrator. She narrates her own books, and she's also narrated Pride by E.B. Zavoy. And the two audiobooks I want to talk about specifically are The Poet X and With the Fire on High. So The Poet X is a book that is told in verse, while With the Fire on High is told in a more traditional format. But I really, really love Elizabeth Acevedo's writing style, but her narration is really what puts these books over the top for me. I just think that she's so great at writing these YA stories in a way that's just so relatable to teens today, but is also just so universally relatable. I've definitely talked about The Poet X in detail. I'll link one of those wrap-ups down below. And I'm going to talk about With the Fire on High in my August wrap-up, so definitely be on the look for that. And then the last narrator I want to talk about is Rebecca Solaire. She specifically has narrated all of Marissa Meyer's books. I listened to all of the audiobooks for the Lunar Chronicles series. I'll put probably one of the books of them up here. And she also narrated Heartless. And she for sure is my favorite audiobook narrator. My goodness, she is such a talented voice actor. She did such a phenomenal job giving all of these kind of crazy and whimsical characters, especially in Heartless, very distinctive voices, but I also enjoyed her narration in the Lunar Chronicles series because there are some characters in that series that also have kind of odd voices. I recently looked up a list of all of the books that she has narrated, and I definitely plan on listening to most, if not all of them, because that is how good of a narrator she is. And that's going to be it for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you would consider subscribing. Don't forget to push that notification bell button below so that you will be notified every time I upload. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!